Okay, I invite you take a moment and stretch a little bit. Okay, let's have our smile exchange. Find somebody and give them one. You Zoomers can smile too. There you go. Okay, I'm Larry Dawalt, one of your Dharma leaders, and welcome. Good to have you out and about. Some of you have been traveling back safely, and others are traveling as well. It's that time. But we're in the midst of a series and tonight we're going to be talking about the precepts and number 3, sexual misconduct. And while the precepts can simply be summarized as not killing, not stealing, not misusing sex, not lying, not abusing intoxicants, the actual precepts are usually totally recited, including I undertake. And Thea let us off 2 weeks ago, and I saw the copies back there. I heard the talk on the YouTube, and the copies were there. I undertake the precept to refrain from destroying living creatures. I undertake the precept to refrain from taking that which is not given. I undertake the precept to refrain from sexual misconduct tonight. I undertake the precept to refrain from incorrect speech, except while driving on 485. I undertake, it's there, I'm kidding. I undertake the precept to refrain from intoxicating drinks and drugs which lead to carelessness. And there are many different precepts for various stages of Buddhist life. There are hundreds for monastic life. But these 5 precepts are the one most often used as the basic training guides for all practicing lay Buddhists. They're not commandments from divine authority. They're to be seen as absolute moral law. But sila, S-I-L-A, the Pali word translated as morality, can certainly be understood as an inner virtue which is conducive to creating a kind of harmony. Buddhist teacher and translator Bhikkhu Bodhi writes that the Buddhist texts explain that sila has the characteristic of harmonizing our actions of body and speech. Sila harmonizes our actions by bringing them into accord with our own true interest and the well-being of others and universal laws. Actions contrary to sila lead to a state of self-division, marked at times by guilt, anxiety, and remorse. But the observance of the principles of sila heals this division, bringing our inner faculties together into a balanced and centered state of unity, not the unbalanced state when I'm driving on 485. One of the most prolific writers on the precepts is the late Vietnamese monk and teacher Thich Nhat Hanh, who translated the 5 precepts into what he calls the 5 mindfulness trainings. And you might be familiar with the 5 mindfulness trainings. I first encountered those years ago when I read his book, For a Future to Be Possible, Buddhist Ethics for Everyday Life. And if you've not read this, you might want to come take a picture of it afterwards. This is the version for people whose eyes aren't that good, but there is a small basic size version like that one. That's available on Amazon. When I first read the title, I saw it simply as a nice, catchy phrase, but as I've studied the book more deeply, I see it as a declaration that keeping or not keeping ethical behavior in everyday life is something that can have a profound influence on happiness, protection, and the well-being not only of ours, but future generations. In the book, he writes, precepts are different from commandments and rules. They're insights born from mindful observation and direct experience of suffering. They are guidelines that help us train ourselves in a way that not only protects us, but protects those around us. I've translated these precepts for modern times because mindfulness is at the foundation of each one of them. With mindfulness, we are aware of what is going on in our bodies, our feelings, our minds, and the world, and we avoid doing harm to ourselves and others. Mindfulness protects us, our families, and our society, and ensures a safe and happy present and a safe and happy future. Precepts are the most concrete expression of the practice of mindfulness. So as we look at this third precept tonight, I want us to go beyond the basic language of I undertake the precept to refrain from sexual misconduct and move into the deeper realm of specific practice that Thich Nhat Hanh outlined in his translation, the third mindfulness training. It goes like this: aware of the suffering caused by sexual misconduct, I'm committed to cultivating responsibility and learning ways to protect the safety and integrity of individuals, couples, families, and society. I am determined not to engage in sexual relations without love and a long-term commitment. To preserve the happiness of myself and others, I'm determined to respect my commitments and the commitments of others. I will do everything in my power to protect children from sexual abuse and to prevent couples and families from being broken by sexual misconduct. In both of these definitions, the term sexual misconduct is used. So I wanted to take a look at that, especially from the Buddhist text. In the Kunda Kamaraputta Sutta, and that's a hard one for me, it's in the Anguttara Nikaya. There's a specific section on unskillful bodily action. These words, and how is one made impure in three ways by bodily action? There's a case where a certain person takes life, is a hunter, bloody-handed, devoted to killing and slaying, showing no mercy to living beings. Precept number 1. He takes what is not given. He takes in the manner of a thief, things in a village or a wilderness that belong to others and have not been given by them. Precept number 2. He engages in sexual misconduct. He gets sexually involved with those who are protected by their mothers, their fathers, their brothers, their sisters, their relatives, or their dharma. Those with husbands, those who entail punishments, or even one engaged to another man. This is how one is made impure in three ways by bodily action. The sutta is real long, but pull that out. While that portion is certainly covering individuals, the safety and integrity of couples, families, and societies is just as important, if not even more important, an aspect of cultivating responsibility. And you probably can recall or are recalling all sorts of scenarios where sexual misconduct has impacted couples, children, careers, financial health, and other things in society. I'm going to stop for a moment to say that covering this topic in a 20-minute Dharma talk is absolutely impossible. I'll just sort of hit a little bit, and I would invite you to study more on this because it's just too big. It takes several Dharma talks to actually break this down, but I want to narrow the rest of the talk down to 3 subjects: craving, control, and commitment. Let's start with craving. Now, as I was preparing, I kept hearing K.D. Lang in my head. Does that ring a bell? Constant craving has always been. Do you realize that those words, that phrase, that's basically what the whole song is. She just repeats it over and over and over. Constant craving has always been. And the Buddha ensures us that it's been for at least 25, going on 2,600 years. Let's start with craving and a basic review of the 4 Noble Truths. as found in the sutta, Setting the Wheel of Dharma in Motion. This again from the Pali. Now this, bhikkhus, is the noble truth of suffering. Birth is suffering, aging is suffering, illness is suffering, death is suffering. Union with what is displeasing is suffering. Separation from what is pleasing is suffering. Not to get what one wants is suffering. In brief, the five aggregates subject to clinging are suffering. Now this bhikkhus, is the normal truth, the noble truth of the origin of suffering. It is this craving, and that word is often translated as thirst, which leads to rebecoming, accompanied by delight and lust, seeking delight here and there. That is, craving for sensual pleasures, craving for becoming, craving for disbecoming. Now this, bhikkhus, is the noble truth of the cessation of suffering. It is the remainderless fading away and cessation of that craving, the giving up and relinquishing of it, freedom from it, non-reliance on it. And then the fourth, of course, now this, bhikkhus, is the noble truth of the way leading to the cessation of suffering, this noble eightfold path: right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. Think of that word thirst as craving, the strong desire we have for pleasure. This desire has a positive and a negative side. Craving for existence, craving for good things, and craving for things to go away, craving for things to be different. The basic idea is that pleasant sensations induce in us a craving for their continuation. Painful feelings induce in us a craving for their cessation, inducing in us either dull or passivity, or a craving for pleasant sensations. Doug Smith, in an article on the Secular Buddhist Association websites, writes that we habituate to pleasure. It often seems as though hedonic opportunities are like a ladder, stretching unbounded upwards. No matter where we are, there are people who seem to be having a better time of it at many diverse levels above us. But while money and power do not provide access to more diverse forms of sensual pleasure, there is no essential link between wealth, power, and happiness, however one reasonably defines happiness. Why? Because impermanence and unsatisfactoriness are too basic and universal, and anything impermanent cannot give a permanent solution to ease our suffering. Control. Some writers, particularly Thich Nhat Hanh, believe that the fifth precept, not to consume alcohol, toxins, or drugs that lead to heedlessness, and the third precept are linked. Both precepts are concerned with the maintaining of mindfulness. There's a reason people go to bars to find a short-term companion. And for a future to be possible, he writes that there is a oneness of body and mind. And I really like this because sometimes, well, the body's here, the mind's here, but this connection, the sanity of the body, he writes, is the sanity of the mind. The violation of the body is the violation of the mind. When we're angry, we may think that we are angry in our feelings, not in our body. That's not true. When we love someone, we want to be close to him or her physically. But when we are angry at someone, we don't want to touch or be touched by that person. We cannot say that body and mind are separate. When we are angry, think of the tension that you have in your body. Let's do a little tension exercise. Hands like so. Let's make a fist. And keep tightening it and tightening it and tightening it. Getting any familiar feelings about how you've had tightness before? Okay, I'm gonna let you go. Much better. Mind-body connection is very significant. And then commitment. I'm determined not to engage in sexual relations without love and a long-term commitment. If the word love is understood in the deepest way, why do we need to say long-term commitment? I remember in seminary studying in the Koine, the Greek language, the three words for love from the ancient Greek: phileo, eros, and agape. Phileo refers to a friendship type of love. Eros is more of a sensual type of love. But agape is a sacrificial love that unites and heals. It's a love of choice, not out of attraction or obligation. True love includes a sense of responsibility, accepting the other person as he or she is, with their strengths and weaknesses. If we only like the best things in the person, that's not love. In the Pali language, this kind of love is like metta, the capacity to bring joy and happiness, and karuna, which is translated compassion, the capacity to transform pain and suffering. This kind of love is safe. It guarantees everything. So the expression long-term commitment that Thich Nhat Hanh uses in context, that's the only way love can be. I want you, I love you, I want to help you, I want to care for you, I want to be happy, I want to work for happiness, and not just for a few days. Responsibility is the key word in the third precept. In a community of practice, if there is no sexual misconduct, if the community practices this precept well, there will be stability and there will be peace. Finally, as you're probably aware, this is Pride Month. And I want to share a word from a book, one of my favorites, Buddhist Boot Camp, in terms of same-gender relationships. He writes, Buddhism has a precept about sexual responsibility. It does not have a different teaching regarding homosexuality than it does on heterosexuality. When a sexual act is an expression of mutual love, loyalty, honesty, warmth, and respect, then it doesn't break the third precept whether the couple is of the same gender or not. The third Buddhist precept is about cultivating responsibility and learning ways to protect the safety and integrity of individuals, couples, families, and society. It invites everyone to do everything in their power to protect children from sexual abuse and to prevent couples and families from being broken by sexual misconduct. As long as there is love and mutual agreement between the adults involved, it isn't sexual misconduct, regardless of gender. So my 20 minutes are up. And I want to conclude by saying this was not an easy talk for me, not only to give, but especially to research. And may have been unpleasant for some of you to hear. I made a lot of mistakes in this area over the years, and I have a lot of regret. But one morning last week, a phrase came back to me that I remember from a poem by Antonio Machado, a Spanish poet. I want to share it with you. Traveler, your footprints are the only road, nothing else. Traveler, there is no road. You make your own path as you walk. As you walk, you make your own road, and when you look back, you see the path you will never travel again. Traveler, there is no road, only a ship's wake on the sea. We look forward, we move forward under the protection of what we know now that we didn't know then. we go on from today, we make the road by walking.